Hey, it's Patrick, and on the lift today, I'm gonna show you how to install adjustable rear sets on your sport bike. Now, what are adjustable rear sets? They're a set of foot controls that allow you to alter the foot position on your motorcycle. Why would you wanna do that? Well, stick around for this episode of On the Lift and find out. There are three main reasons to upgrade the rear sets on your motorcycle, and the first one, and maybe the most important one, is adjustability. Something like these Vortex V3s we're using today offer a ton of adjustability, not only in foot peg position, but in brake and shifter position as well. You can get your bike fitted exactly to you. The second reason is durability. Something like what we're using today is made out of 7075 T6 aluminum. In the event of a crash or a track day incident, these are gonna hold up much better than your stock rear sets. Also, you can replace these a piece at a time. You don't need to buy a whole set of rear sets. You can just replace what you broke. Third, looks. These look very racy because they are. If you're looking to score some cool guy bike points down at the local Starbucks, this is the setup for you and your whip. If you want more specific information, check out the detailed breakdown video on our product page on these Vortex V3 2.0 rear sets. Now, what are we gonna need to get this done? First thing you're gonna need is a set of rear sets. You don't necessarily need a lift, but it will be helpful in this installation, keep you up off the garage floor. Other than that, you just need some basic hand tools. A set of metric Allen wrenches, a 10mm, a 13mm, and a 14mm wrench, a set of needle nose pliers, to be able to get the job done. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start on the brake side. We're going to take the factory rear set loose. We're also gonna remove it from the muffler hanger and take off our master cylinder. So to finish getting our master cylinder off here, we have to pull this little cotter pin out, so then this pin will slide out and get our master cylinder completely free. We need to make sure we save all this hardware from this little clevis attachment. We're gonna take a 4mm and take this screw out and take this spring off, and this should completely remove our brake switch, and our old unit will be completely free. You'll need to reuse the rubber grommet and the metal hat washer from your stock exhaust hanger. These rear sets are a pretty racy piece, so you're actually going to lose your stock brake light switch for the rear brake. There is a fix for that. Vortex sells this pressure activated switch, which replaces the banjo bolt in your rear master cylinder, but you will have to wire the two wires to your old brake light switch wires. So it's a little bit easier to attach the brake arm to the master cylinder now. So we're gonna slide this in here. We're gonna slide our pin through the back and take our washer and our cotter pin and slide it down in here. You can reuse the old cotter pin if it's in good shape. So the next thing we need to do is put our exhaust hanger bracket on there. We need to reuse our old exhaust hanger pieces. We'll put the piece of rubber in here and the hat style washer that pushes through the back of the exhaust hanger bracket. It's two 6x12mm screws that come with the kit. I recommend some blue Loctite on that, and you're gonna need a 4mm Allen to put those on there. They drop down in the recess pocket. Okay, the next thing we wanna do is put our brake pedal onto our actual rear set. Have this crazy looking piece of hardware here. This is actually a 14mm. We're going to grease this just ever slightly. There's bearings in here, but we're gonna throw a little grease on here because it is a moving part. We're gonna slide it through with a washer on this side of the brake pedal, and then we're gonna screw it into our rear set piece here, and I am just gonna use a dab of blue Loctite on that. So now I'm gonna take the two 8x20mm bolts and actually mount the rear set to the frame. I'm gonna use a 6mm Allen for that, some blue Loctite, but don't get crazy, you don't wanna strip anything out. We're gonna put our heel guard piece on with these 6x35mm screws that will thread into our master cylinder so that all gets mounted at one time. We'll throw a little blue Loctite on there, use a 4mm Allen and mount it all up. So now we're gonna take our bolt that came out of our exhaust hanger originally. We're gonna use a 6mm Allen and mount our muffler back on. Now to mount our foot peg, we have to get to the screw, which is inside the peg. To do that, we'll pop this plastic cap off. We'll dab some blue Loctite on it, use a 6mm Allen to attach it to our rear set. So this has a ton of adjustability to it. So you can roll this forward and backwards. It has nice little numbers etched in there so you can see what position you're in. There's actually 2 spots on the rear set to set the peg up. The best way to figure that out is to get on the bike, try both spots, and figure out which one works best for you. Now we need to slip our lock nut and washer up on the back side of the rear set. That can be a little bit tricky, but we're gonna use a 13mm wrench on the back and a 5mm Allen to tighten it down. The last thing we have to do is put our brake pedal in the spot that we want it. And as you can see, there's 2 different locations on the arm, plus you can roll it forwards. Once you get that in the spot you want it, take a 5mm Allen, tighten down the screw, and we're all done on this side. So we need to get our stock shifter piece off. We're gonna pull this little rubber boot back. We're gonna take a 4mm Allen and pull this off. 5mm, that will take the whole assembly off. So now on the end of our shift shaft here, we're gonna pull our rubber boot off. We're gonna take a 10mm, hold this, loosen this nut. So we need to take this whole eyelet out of here. We're gonna replace that with the new Vortex piece. Our new piece from Vortex is exactly the same length. And basically you want to thread that back up into that shaft the same amount it was up in there. You may have to make some adjustment with that once we get this put on to make sure the throw in the shifter is correct. The nice thing about the Vortex one, it is serviceable where the stock one is not. Also, when you put this in, as you can see here, it is reverse thread. So now to mount our shifter, it's similar to our brake side. We're gonna put a little bit of grease on where the friction is here. I know there's bearings in there. We're gonna put our washer on the other side, a little bit of blue Loctite on this, and tighten this up with a 14mm. You don't want to bind up your movement, but you do want it to be pretty snug. I mean, just snug enough so it's not hard to move this up and down. Now, if we wanted GP shift instead of like a standard street pattern, we would have mounted this back here. We would have mounted our shift shaft back here. And if you do that, you need to use this little bolt marked GP shift that comes with the kit. That's for using this hole back here. So we have to mount our shifter peg. Again, tons of adjustability here so we can mount it in either of these holes. But to do that, we have to pull this bolt out. You can see this groove right here. That's where that bolt rides in there. So you can't have that bolt in there when you try to slip this in. It won't go in all the way. We'll use our 5mm once we determine where we want our peg. We'll tighten this up. Now that we know where we want it, we can mount this peg on there before we put the unit on there. So I'm gonna mount it in the same position I did on the other side, clocked in the same direction. That way our feet are gonna be in the same spot on both sides of the bike. And we were in the far back hole. So now we'll go with our washer and our 13mm lock nut. We're gonna take our 6x12s, throw some Loctite on there, take our 4mm Allen, and mount our little heel kicker plate on there. So now we need to take a 6mm Allen, pull out our 2 screws, and get rid of our stock foot peg assembly. Now we're gonna take our 8x20mm bolts, drop a little bit of Loctite on them, use our 6mm to mount our new bracket. Again, snug those up, don't get too crazy. You are going into aluminum. So one last thing to mention is this other little bracket that comes in here, Kickstand Eliminator. If you are going to be using this bike as a track-only bike, want to get rid of your kickstand, this is a great little cleanup way to do it. You can get rid of the big stock bracket, save yourself some weight, look extra racy with this bracket. All right, there you have it. Pretty easy install with minimal tools. They're gonna net us a lot of riding positions and adjustability for our motorcycle. As always, if you have any more questions, feel free to hit that info tab on your desktop or mobile device. That's going to take you to the product detail page where you can read other rider reviews and more specifics about the product. If you still have more questions, feel free to reach out to our customer service team. They would love to talk to you about what works best for you, your budget, and your bike. I'm Patrick. Thank you for watching. Go work on those motorcycles.